probably had you scared because I didn't know where I was supposed to even sit, so you're probably wondering what kind of speech does a guy have that doesn't even know where to sit. But it was my brother's fault. He said to come over here. I bought a bottle of wine for that table, and then I left the table, so it worked, right. But good evening, and thank you, Mr. Barron, Dave, congratulations, fellow inductees, Your Worship, President Byrne, head table guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'd also like to congratulate and thank the Sports Hall of Fame Committee for the effort and the commitment to the history of sports in our community. I see myself more of a lecturer than a guest speaker, and my position in the community doesn't allow me to get up here and tell a lot of old jock jokes or some redneck stories. However, it is indeed a pleasure and honor to be your guest speaker tonight. As I put my pen to paper, I allowed my mind to wonder, what should I say? I don't think anyone wants to hear the old war stories of Billy Prystai or the tall tales of Keith Washenfelder. I'm afraid to make any comments about Terry Struthers for a fear of his morning radio verbal attack on society or this guest speaker. So in order to satisfy your expectations, I've prepared a three-part lesson plan. Being an educator, I think in terms of lesson plans. 1, my opening address and the lesson. 2, jokes. And 3, a closing. I thought it would be appropriate this evening to talk about heroes. In reflecting on this topic, I concluded for me that there are 2 types of heroes. The glamorous heroes that have made little or no real difference in my life, and the quiet heroes. The quiet heroes are the ones who didn't necessarily try or want to be heroes, but have done much to shape my life and probably yours. The first type of heroes are easy to find, and for me they changed as my love and interest for athletics changed. My first love was hockey, and at the time the greatest team to me was the Toronto Maple Leafs. Sorry, Mitro. And in particular, Frank Mathews. Most of you can remember when he wore number 27 for the Leafs. Those were the glorious days of Johnny Bauer, who was an acrobat between the pipes, Davy Keon, the sensational rookie, and Tim Horton, the magician with the puck. And who could forget Bobby Baughan, the one of the hardest hitters in the league. And at that time, the league only included 6 teams. The Leafs won 3 Stanley Cups in a row, and Frank scored 49 goals in a single 50-game season. Frank was my hero. Each time I played hockey, I would imagine myself as a great Frank Mathews, bursting down the left wing, sweeping in and scoring a goal. I hung a huge Export A hockey calendar in my room, and I could name every player on the team by face and by number. At the end of the 3rd Stanley Cup year, I summoned all my courage along with my father's guidance and wrote Mr. Mathews a letter. Growing up next door to Stanabodiak, I figured I had a shoe-in and would get my request. I wrote and asked for an old broken hockey stick that he might autograph. Surely this would hang next to my hockey calendar, and I was confident. I never got a thing. I guess, Mitro, my name should have been Matty Capone. And with this, I have a short quote for an example of what I'm trying to say tonight. The book that I'd like to quote from is To Run with Longboat. It's 12 stories of Indian athletes in Canada. It was written by Brenda Zeman, a young girl that I used to run with a number of years ago. And in this story, or in this book, there's a story about Freddie Sakamoose, a great hockey player up in the PA country that went to the NHL. And a fellow that also knew him and played beside him or with him at times was Mitro Prystai. The other interesting thing is my daughter is presently reading this book, and I find it interesting that the bookmark is old Mitro Prystai's picture, and it says, "To Janelle, good luck, Mitro Prystai." Mitro's got a little more hair, I think, and he looks in shape here, to be honest with you. But I would like to quote, the biggest gangster I ever ran into in the Midwest was Matty Capone, Al's younger brother. Once when I was playing for Detroit, Matty was in the crowd. I tried to avoid skating over by his corner of the rink, but he kept calling, "Mitro." I was afraid to go over, but I was also afraid not to go over. Finally, I went, and in a real tough voice, he said, "Hey, Mitro, get me an autograph stick." I got him a stick. And that's why I say I guess my name should have been Matty Capone. So, no stick, no letter from Stanabodiak. To say the least, I was a disappointed little boy. And it was shortly after this that Harold Ballard, the Toronto GM, was sent to jail for embezzling funds from the Leafs. In the mind of at least one disappointed little boy, the Leafs were losing some of their lust. And it was about this time in my life I broke my leg playing hockey and was told to start doing a lot of running and a lot of walking and to stay out of contact sports. So I started running and cheering for the Montreal Canadiens. Many of us have had such heroes, and we have learned lessons of disappointment. Children learn all kinds of lessons, and some of these lessons have also been learned from and by heroes. My new heroes, though, were two local runners, Ray Rotinsky and Allan MacDonald, and a national and an international runner by the name of Bill Crothers. These people are still my heroes, and I'm pleased to see another track and field athlete being honored here this evening. Al, congratulations. Let me tell you about one other hero. He died 4 years ago, and he wasn't a likely-looking hero. He was 5'0" and as skinny as a rail, and I'm told he had some athletic ability, but he never discussed it with us. He never appeared on national television for $1 million contract. He never even wanted to be a hero. He just wanted to be a good teacher, a good friend, and live a good life. And at a time when I wasn't eager to learn the values he wanted me to learn and to share with him, he did teach me patience and understanding. He showed me how to hold a bat. He showed me how to shoot a puck. His enthusiasm for love of life will be forever a model for me. And like Pat Pfeifer, I was fortunate to learn, before it was too late, some of the valuable lessons from this hero had taught me. And that hero, of course, was my father. Tonight, you are all heroes. You are hometown heroes, and each of you have a story that I hope will be told and retold in this community. I want to assure you that all the inductees are someone's real and meaningful hero. Whether or not you want to assume that role, children or some child will in particular be watching or listening to you. They'll be watching you and reading about you because they admire you. What do we want the youth in this area to learn from you and your experiences, and how will you teach them? Will they value athletics because they see the passion that you have had for it? Will they learn to enjoy each moment because they see or have heard of your positive examples and the spirit that you have? Chief Dan George once said, "It is the very young and the very old that are the closest to life because they treasure every moment." Can we model that spirit? All of you have been excellent role models. There are lessons society learns from heroes, and there are lessons children will learn by your examples. You have been given the privilege of being inducted into the Yorkton Hall of Fame and being a child's hero. I hope everyone has an enjoyable evening, and in the words of Elvis Presley, thank you, Mama, and so ends the lesson. God bless.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have a very, very enthusiastic visual aid man, Lawrence Pearson. And to start off the inductions this evening, there's a little preliminary as an introduction, a very short video tour of our museum. So I'll ask the visual aid people to focus their attention on the screen, and you will see something about our museum that we established beginning in 1994, last year. remark with respect to the museum pictures. We've had a lot of fun with that mannequin in the far corner. Some of you can't see it, I know that. That is Doc Yalenitsky's baseball uniform, which he wore when he was a Yorkton Cardinal in the 50s. And that mannequin has many parts to it. This morning, Vern Pahal and McCorkle and myself went to the museum, and we thought we'd bring Doc over here, or I mean the mannequin. And we drove down Broadway, and here's McCorkle in the back seat with that mitt that is on the left forearm, waving at a lady that was driving next to us. Lo and behold, we lost it on the middle of the Broadway. We had to turn around and pick it up. Scared the daylights out of somebody when the mask fell off the head. The ball-headed catcher there. But talking a little bit about that uniform, Mitro Prystai said to me, he stood back and silent, he said, you know about that uniform, that whole giant, 15 uniforms, he says, I brought them from the States when I played with Detroit. You know who I'm talking about, Mitro. And he says, I played with Detroit, and I decided to buy these uniforms cheap from a Jewish fellow there. And as Mitro was talking, he reminded me of one of those Jewish fellows. You remember that old fellow from Wynyard, you Wynyard people, that Jewish fellow that had a store in the corner? What was his name? Jack Kresge. Geske, not Gretzky, but Teskey, that's it. Mitro stands there looking like Teskey. He says, about those uniforms next to nothing. They're a Jewish fellow in Detroit, he says. But then the problem was, and I could see the twinkle in his eye, and you know what the problem is already. You buy them, you have to bring them home. There's a border between the United States and Canada. I won't tell you the rest of the story, because I really don't know honestly what happened, but I know it went past Pilot Mound someplace near Winnipeg, and it reached Jubilee Park in Yorkton, where the boys all fitted their uniforms in the 1950s. You'll have to see Mitro who can tell you the rest of the story. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the procedure for induction that I'd like to carry out this evening. It will be similar for all 6 individual inductees and 1 team inductee. First of all, I will read the citation remarks, key remarks about each inductee. Secondly, immediately following the reading, we will see the video of that particular person who's interviewed by various individuals in this community. And last of all, you'll be called forward to officially be inducted. A plaque will be handed to you, and you'll be officially inducted by Vern Pahal, our chairman. So the recitation first, the video tapes, and where we'll hear the interviews with the various inductees, and lastly, you'll come forward to be inducted. The first inductee for 1995 in the Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame, Allan MacDonald. Allan MacDonald was a force to be reckoned with as a runner throughout the 1960s. First in Yorkton, where he was a member of the Yorkton Track Club, and later as a university athlete and national and international competitor. He now lives in Roblin, Manitoba. Allan has continued to instruct in athletics and academic subjects throughout his teaching career. He was a successful track and cross-country competitor in high school in Yorkton from 1960 to 1964, winning many medals in long-distance racing throughout the province. In 1963, he broke the Canadian 2-mile record set by Bruce Kidd by a full 8 seconds while competing as a juvenile in the Alberta Championships. From 1964 to 1970, he was a member of the University of Saskatchewan track and cross-country teams and captain of both. the teams competed nationally and internationally. Allan was a gold medalist in the 10,000-meter event at the Western Canadian Olympic Trials in 1963 and went on to compete in the Canadian trials. Throughout his youth in Yorkton and later at university, Allan also competed in basketball, volleyball, hockey, football, badminton, and baseball. And now, folks, I'd like to direct your attention to the video, the screen, please.
Looking back, and when you and Mr. Skorchuk encouraged me to come out for the cross-country teams at the Yorkton Composite High School, we competed in a fairly large race eventually in cross-country running. I believe it was about a 3-mile race. And through conditioning at high school under your coaching and working on the farm, through those things I was able to win the race that day. And after that, you and Mr. Skorchuk encouraged me further to compete. Eventually, I went on to the provincial teams and University of Saskatchewan track and field teams and cross-country teams. Some of us were on Canadian teams eventually. I was thinking back of Ray Rotinsky, who competed with me at the time. Ray and I had some great times running together and going to meets together across Canada and somewhat into the northern United States and competing against international athletes eventually. I've always remembered the encouragement I got here in Yorkton.
To get started, eh?
To get started, and I spent some real good years running under the Yorkton Track Club with Ray Rotinsky, and I was fortunate enough when I was in the juvenile category to break the Canadian record, formerly held by Bruce Kidd at the time. I think his time was 9:55.6. I was able to break it by 8 seconds. I brought it down to 9:47.6. And this took place in a national meet in Edmonton at the time. I believe it was in 1962. I was thinking back, I believe it was about 1964, Ray Rotinsky and I were given the keys to the city of Yorkton as an honor for competition and running under the Yorkton Track Club. And today I really feel honored to be here and to be remembered, as I said, after these years. It really is a great honor.
So you feel pretty good about the recognition that Yorkton provided for you, Yorkton and locale, as a matter of fact, Allan, because we feel that this is a Yorkton and locale Sports Hall of Fame, but I suppose you feel pretty good about that.
I certainly do. The spirit in Yorkton and the district have been really good over the years, whether it's hockey. I think of your hockey days and watching you play hockey for many years. And just think of the support the teams from Yorkton, whether it's track, cross-country, or hockey. I feel for a community this size, the people have been pretty good at supporting athletic events. And I just want to say thank you to the nominating committee, to yourself, Vern, and to people here today. And I just want to congratulate other athletes who are honored in this way besides myself. I just say thank you to Yorkton and the district for your support for us from past events and competitions, and thank you for your support for present young athletes too.
It is my pleasure to ask Allan MacDonald to come forward to be officially inducted to the Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Allan MacDonald. Our next inductee, Donald Pfeifer. While Don has been involved as a coach and organizer in basketball, track, and other sports over the past several decades, he's best known as a volleyball official of international stature. Since 1976, he has been the only level 5 international official Saskatchewan has ever had. And this year he received the Volleyball Canada Lifetime Officials Award, only the 4th awarded to an official in the sport in the past 30 years. His involvement in volleyball started when he commenced a teaching career 28 years ago, first as a coach and organizer, but soon after as a referee. He was the provincial high school rules and officials chairman for 20 years, and the provincial officials chairman for 16 years. His involvement at the national level started in 1979. Since then, he has served the National Volleyball Officials Committee as chairman, rules chairman, chief training clinician, management committee member, North, South, and Central American zone member, International Officials Committee of Chairman, and the Canadian representative on the Special Refereeing Commission for the World University Championships. He has officiated at medal matches at all levels of competition, and the only Canadian to have worked as first referee in a gold medal Pan American Games match. His international refereeing involvement has taken him to a dozen countries around the globe, and involvement in national championships, World University Championships, Pan American Games, and the Olympics. Ladies and gentlemen, let's listen to the interview.
To be selected to the Yorkton Hall of Fame, and in its second year I realized that there's an awful lot of people around the community of Yorkton and culture and sport who deserve such an honor, and I guess I feel privileged because I've certainly been involved nationally, internationally, provincially, and have been recognized in some situations as such, but this is a special privilege to be recognized by people in your own backyard. If I think about my involvement with sport over the last number of years, 25 or 30 I might add, I have been involved as an official, of course, as a coach, and sometimes I like to think of myself as an athlete, but certainly I haven't reached any prominence there. I guess some of the things I think stick in my mind are the opportunities I've had to travel not only around the district of Yorkton, but as I said, provincially and internationally. I've been to a variety of countries, and these have been some of the highlights that I remember over my involvement of sport in the last number of years. One of the things that I remember most about my involvement is the respect, I guess, I hope I've gained from a variety of people, right from my colleagues here in Yorkton, who are many, who deserve this recognition as well, and I'm sure they'll be here in future years, right to the international people. Some of the highlights that I recall, again, indicating working in a variety of countries, refereeing the gold medal match in Pan American Games in Venezuela. The 10,000 crazy South Americans would probably be one of those highlights in officiating. I've worked on various commissions as well throughout the world, worked with university people in Canada, and again, I always come back to the Yorkdale Central and to Yorkton and find it just as enjoyable to work with sports around the community. I'd certainly like to thank the selection committee from the Yorkton Hall of Fame, and Gene Krebikavich in particular for initially nominating me, and a variety of the people that have actually made this selection possible. There's numerous people in the community that I've worked with and have actually assisted me, I suppose, in acquiring such an honor this evening. Special thank you to these people.
It is my pleasure to ask Don Pfeifer to come forward and be officially inducted to the Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Don Pfeifer.
Well, 'Cause, 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 'cause,
Our next inductee, Pat Pfeifer. Pat Pfeifer, originally a Yorkton girl by the name of Kiggins. Started playing competitive golf in Yorkton at the age of 14 and has continued to be a success in this sport to this very day. Now living in Winnipeg, Manitoba, she has represented Saskatchewan or Manitoba at 13 Canadian Golf Championships and was the runner-up at the Canadian Senior Ladies Championship in 1992. She was the Manitoba Senior Champion in 1994, capping 4 years as a member of that province's Senior Ladies national team. It started back in 1956 when she won the first of 4 consecutive Northeastern Ladies Championships at her home course, Deer Park in Yorkton. She won many other tournaments in the province and was the Saskatchewan Junior Ladies Champion in 1957 and 1959. She was a member of the Saskatchewan Ladies Amateur Team in 1958, 1960, 1963, and 1964. She was a member of the Canadian Junior Championship Team in 1961 and was the runner-up to her sister Marg Hominick in the Manitoba Amateur Golf Championships in 1961 and 64. She again was a member of the Manitoba Amateur Team in 1973 and started her successful senior golf career as a member of the Manitoba Senior Team in 1991. She has been club champion at Deer Park in Yorkton, at Pine Ridge, Elmhurst, and Rossmer in Winnipeg. She was also an avid high school curler in Yorkton and has competed in the Manitoba Provincial Ladies Curling Championships on 5 occasions.
Let's just get your comments about being elected to the Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame Museum.
Tremendous honor. I'm really pleased about it, and pleased to the people that made it possible, and the nominating committee that accepted it. It was very nice honor.
What about looking back in your career? Is there a couple of highlights you'd like to tell us about?
I guess there's a couple. My biggest thrill was a couple years ago, coming second in the Canadian Senior, second to an American, so that gave me a little Canadian in it. That was in Halifax in '93, and it's the other thing. I've been on provincial teams for many years. That's always been a thrill. Every time you make one, it feels like the first time. But I guess I've been on about 13 of them now. So I'm playing back in Saskatchewan. And when I was a young teenager, it was always exciting. Every year I went away to play somewhere.
Right. What about your junior golfing days and that? Is there a couple of memories, some special memories?
The special memory is playing on grass greens for the first time at the Saskatchewan Golf and Country Club, and crying when I couldn't get on to them, and telling my mom that I was sure I was going to embarrass myself and the family and everybody. But and playing against Joanne Goulet when I was 14 years old in the Saskatchewan Amateur Final. That was, and I guess another girl and I won the Canadian Junior Teams in Vancouver at Marine Drive. Sometime I guess about 1960 or 61. So that was very exciting.
Now, was there a few people that sort of helped you along in your golfing career?
Well, the biggest influence was my dad. My dad was a good golfer and loved the game, and I started caddying for him out at Regina, or in Weyburn, at the Weyburn Golf Club, but it was full of snakes, so that kind of stopped me. But I went on to, we moved to Yorkton, and he used to go out every day after work. He was our CMP, and I loved going out with him, started caddying, and then he bought me a little set of clubs and started playing a lot. So he was a big influence, and then a lot of members of the Yorkton Golf Club, like the Hominicks, Wilson, Stan, and Ted, and people like Dick Fernback and Cliff Aney and O.J. Tremblay, people that just were very good to me over the years.
In closing, Pat, what about some people? Anybody you'd like to thank at this particular point?
Well, thanks everyone who connected with the Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame, and I'm going to enjoy coming for the function and seeing all the other inductees and the people that have been in it some years previous. So looking forward to it. It sounds like a really nice thing for Yorkton to have the Hall of Fame there.
It is my pleasure to ask Pat Pfeifer to come forward and officially be inducted to the Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame. Pat Pfeifer. Our next inductee, either Metro Prystai or Bill Prystai, doesn't make any difference really. For technical reasons, we'll start with Bill Prystai. Bill Prystai was a member of 3 provincial championship hockey teams over a span of 16 years and followed that accomplishment with a distinguished career as a volunteer sports organizer and official, which continues to this day. Active in all sports while growing up in Yorkton, Bill was a member of the Saskatchewan Juvenile Hockey Championship champions in 1941, the Senior A champions in 1951, and the Intermediate A champions in 1957. During World War II, while serving at Number 4 Service Flight Training School in Saskatoon, he was a member of the Western Command Tri-Service Championship hockey team. He played senior baseball with the Yorkton Cardinals for 10 years, starting after the war. In the mid-1950s, he coached the Yorkton Midget B hockey team to the provincial finals. He was referee-in-chief for the Saskatchewan Amateur Hockey Association from 1967 to 1969, and served on the SAHA executive for most of the 1960s. He first became involved with the Saskatchewan Rough Riders as the Yorkton chairman of the annual fundraising dinner in 1970. The next year, Bill moved to Regina, and for the past 25 years has been on the dinner committee there. He has served as treasurer of the Regina Rough Rider Dinner Committee for the past 22 years.
Your career in that, is there kind of a highlight or a few highlights you'd like to tell us about?
Well, one of the highlights, the first highlight, of course, was when we won the Juvenile Championship of Saskatchewan in 1941. In those days, all hockey was strictly A class, and we played against teams like Regina, Moose Jaw, North Battleford, Melville, and we went undefeated that year and won that's the first juvenile championship Yorkton had. That was back in 1941. Then in 1956, played with the Intermediate Championship. 1951, we won the Saskatchewan Senior Hockey Championship, and that's the first time a Yorkton team won the Senior Championship. And of course, in 1945, I played with the Air Force team in Saskatoon, and we won the Western Command Hockey Championship. Playing with fellows like Harry Watson and Garth Bush, future NHLers with Toronto Maple Leafs who were on a number of Stanley Cups apiece. So those are a couple of my thrills.
You were instrumental about Deer Park as to how it became the way it is today?
Well, I shouldn't say I was instrumental, but I had a hand in it. I was on city council, and originally the city council bought it from the Simpson estate. The Simpson people wanted it to be strictly owned by the city. And after once we bought the golf course, we had a committee formed of local people plus members of council, and we decided to put in grass greens. And of course, after we put in grass greens, we had work parties a few times a year to plant the trees. So if you notice down the fairways, all kinds of trees. There's hundreds of trees planted by people who were volunteers. And that's, well, the result was, of course, a beautiful course.
Well, was there a few people, say, in Yorkton that maybe you'd like to thank in that, or to say that were instrumental about helping you along with your career?
Well, originally, George Jameson was our coach. George Jameson coached a number of championship teams in Yorkton, and he's still there in Yorkton, George Jameson. He retired from Scott National. I don't know, we just went out there, we played our hearts out all the time. You know, whether I played senior intermediate or juvenile hockey, we just went out there and played hockey because it was really for the fun of it. And, well, I respect all the coaches that I played under.
Your comments about being inducted to the Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame Museum.
It's really an honor for me. I didn't expect it, you know. I played a lot of hockey in Yorkton and so forth, played baseball, and it's really a thrill for me to get inducted, especially since I'm being inducted with my brother Mitro.
It is my pleasure to ask Billy Prystai to come forward to be officially inducted to the Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame. Bill Prystai. Our next inductee, Mitro Prystai. Mitro grew up playing hockey, baseball, and other sports in Yorkton. At the age of 17, he went to Moose Jaw, where he joined the Canucks junior hockey team. He was there 3 seasons between 1944 and 1947, winning the Saskatchewan championship each year. The team also won the Western Canada Junior Championships 2 of those years and went on to compete in the Memorial Cup finals, only to lose each time to St. Michael's College of Toronto. Mitro won the league scoring title and Most Valuable Player award in each of his last 2 years in Moose Jaw. He turned professional in 1947 with the Chicago Blackhawks and played in the National Hockey League 11 years. The first 4 in Chicago, the remainder with the Detroit Red Wings. In Detroit, he played on 5 league championship teams and 2 Stanley Cup winning teams in 1952 and 54. In the 1952 Stanley Cup, he was the co-leader in points scored, along with teammates Ted Lindsay and Gordie Howe. While in the NHL, he was selected to play in 3 All-Star games. He played baseball with the Yorkton Cardinals for about 15 years, and in Moose Jaw. Mitro coached minor hockey and minor baseball in Yorkton, and in the 1960s turned to coaching junior hockey, spending 3 years in Moose Jaw with the Canucks and 2 years in Melville with the Millionaires. He coached the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey Championships in 1962. Champions. Mitro was elected to the Saskatchewan Sports Hall of Fame in 1989.
Born and raised in Yorkton here, and I started out playing pretty well all sports, you know, when I was a kid. And then at the age of 15, I went to Moose Jaw to play junior hockey. And I was there for 3 years, and we were fortunate enough to win 3 Saskatchewan titles and 2 Western Canada titles there. We went to the Memorial Cup on 2 occasions and lost out to Toronto St. Mike's at that time. I turned pro in 1947, and I went with Chicago, and I was there for a number of years, 3 years to be exact. Was traded to Detroit, the Red Wings. I was there for 4 years, and then I went back to Chicago for 1 year, and then I come back to Detroit again for 3 years. We didn't have too good a team while in Chicago, but in Detroit, I was on 5 league championship teams and 2 Stanley Cup winners. And I can remember the 1 year that in the final game I scored the winning goal, and I was very, happy about that, and very proud, in fact. And then after I finished playing hockey, I went into coaching for a number of years. I coached in Melville, and I coached in Moose Jaw. And while at Moose Jaw, we won the Saskatchewan championship there in junior, being beaten out by Edmonton. Then after that, I guess I kind of figured I might as well get back to work. I had a family, and I wanted to sport, and I went into business in Wynyard, Saskatchewan. And then I come back here, retiring about 4 or 5 years ago. Being a hometown boy here, I'm very proud to be one of the fellows that was elected to the Hall of Fame. And when you're with other people, of the same caliber, like in sports and that, it's very gratifying. And I'm especially glad that my brother is going to be going at the same time with me.
It is my pleasure to ask Mitro Prystai to be officially inducted to the Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame. Mitro Prystai. Our next inductee, Keith Washenfelder. Keith's career as a player, coach, and organizer of baseball in Yorkton has spanned 4 decades. From the time he played in the minor baseball ranks in Yorkton to his team's successful participation in interprovincial competitions in the late 1980s. In the latter half of the 1950s, Keith played with the Yorkton Phillies of the Gary League and the Juvenile Cardinals. During the 1960s, he was involved as a player and organizer with the Yorkton Cardinals, which through his efforts joined the Southern Baseball League, and which in 1969 were the provincial runners-up under Keith's management. He served as president of the Cardinals in the early 1970s, taking responsibility for the organization, tournaments, facilities, and player acquisition. During that time, he became involved in promoting minor league baseball and was a coach, manager, and fundraiser. In 1984, he managed and coached the provincial champion Bantam Cardinals, which won 26 consecutive games leading up to the title. 3 years later, he coached and managed the Juvenile Cardinals to their provincial championship. In 1988, his Cardinals won the provincial and Western Canadian Bison Championships, and the team competed in the national championships in Nova Scotia. Keith has also been active in hockey and fastball as a coach and organizer.
Playing organized baseball when I was 11 years old. I played Little League in Yorkton, and from there on I played another 2 years at Babe Ruth, and then I jumped to the Yorkton Phillies when I was 15 years old, and I became a regular with the Yorkton Phillies as a center fielder. And I played with the Phillies until we entered the Southern League in 1967 under the Yorkton Cardinals. And I played with the Cardinals 67, 68, and in 1969 I was playing manager as and I had Mitro Prystai as one of my coaches. Then in 1970, I became the president of the Yorkton Cardinals, and we're still in the Southern League. And then we left the Southern League, and I more or less started coaching minor ball, and got involved really heavy duty in 1983. I took a ball team to Elk Grove, California, that's just out of Sacramento. That's a suburb of Sacramento, California. We went down there and we played 3 exhibition games, and then from then on, I always had about 5 or 6 players that were left from other years, and started in 1984. We won the Bantam Championship for Saskatchewan. We went on to Winnipeg and repeated there. And then in 1987, we won the Juvenile Saskatchewan Championship. Then in 1988, we won the Saskatchewan Championship here in Yorkton, and we represent Saskatchewan, Westlock, Alberta, and we won the Western Canada, and there we went to Halifax to represent Saskatchewan, which we did very, very well. We lost 3 games, and we lost them all by 1 run. And the last game would have put us right in the final for the Canadian Championship, but I guess it just wasn't to be that day. Well, when I first started out playing baseball and coaching baseball, I did it for the love of the games, and like myself, I didn't know there was any rewards at the end, and I really have to thank the Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame for selecting me as one of their members for 1995.
It is my pleasure to ask Keith Washenfelder to be officially inducted into Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame. Keith Washenfelder. The last inductees for the evening is a curling rink consisting of Donna Mathews, Ella Baker, Alice Park, and Rita Davidson. In 1958, each having played on Yorkton rinks in club competition and having had local success, Donna Mathews, Ella Baker, Alice Park, and Rita Davidson teamed up in an attempt to slide and sweep their way into higher levels of curling competition. And they succeeded. All 4 ladies had curled since their high school days and had been coached by such notable mentors as Bill Kerr, Merv Campbell, and Stan Green. Their collaboration as a team resulted in them becoming the Saskatchewan Provincial Ladies Champions in 1958. And that was followed by winning the Western Canadian Championships that same year. The rinks stayed together for several years, concluding their career by reuniting to win an event at the Manitoba Women's Bonspiel in 1968. Each of the team members was active in curling for more than 30 years. Donna Mathews was also successful as a golfer at the provincial and interprovincial level. Alice Park was a high school ice hockey player, and both she and Rita Davidson have enjoyed golf at the recreational and organizational level. Before I ask them to come forward, I would like to mention that Sylvia Gay will accept the plaque on behalf of Ella Baker, who is unable to attend. And also, because of the passing of Rita Davidson recently, her daughter, Royce, will accept the plaque on her behalf. So, it is my pleasure to ask the Mathews Rink to come forward to be officially inducted to the Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame. The Mathews Rink, Ladies and gentlemen.
To introduce our curling team of 1958, who won the Saskatchewan Provincial Curling. My third was Ella Baker, my second Rita Alice Park, and my lead Rita Davidson. We were all members of the Yorkton Ladies Curling Club, and in 1958 we got together and we managed to win from the club, then the district playoffs. Then we had a very exciting southern playoffs, which were held in Regina in a stadium, which was kind of a new experience for all of us. It was a very grueling playoff. We ended up playing probably 16 out of the last 24 hours. So I remember we just sort of got in a good mode, and we were victorious. And then it was on to provincials, which were in Swift Current. And as it happened, we were the team representing the South, and we were probably the most northern team, and our opposition was from Invermay, who were probably the most southern team from the north. We decided to go to Swift Current via airplane because yours truly had never flown, and they thought it would be an exciting way to travel. As it turned out, we weren't able to land in Swift Current because of the blizzard, so we had to go on to Medicine Hat or maybe even Lethbridge, providing they could land. And so we landed at Medicine Hat, came back via a limousine, which we arrived at the banquet. Probably the banquet was in session for a half an hour.
Okay.
And we were the guests of honor, naturally. I don't think any of us can really remember with excitement and the sort of the shock of the situation that we had when flying. Anyway, we got out on the first night and got our butts kicked. I don't even know whether we got on the scoreboard. And that evening, after in a hotel room, the doctor came and gave yours truly a shot of something. And I was out for 12 hours, and the next day we all sort of regathered our best we could, and we were fortunate to win the second and then again the final game. Sort of an antidote to this, when we were to come home by plane, sort of the same situation occurred. They had oversold, and because of the stormy conditions, they had to lighten their load, so I volunteered to stay back. So the rest of my girls went home on the plane, and I came home the next day on the bus. They were greeted by our families and friends in Yorkton. I guess it was just wonderful. They really appreciated all the support that we got from our friends and cohorts in Yorkton. Then at that time, the next step was Western Canada, and there were just the 4 provinces, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC. And the playoffs were in Calgary. So needless to say, we didn't go by plane. We went by train, and that was kind of exciting for everybody. and it was a round robin, double round robin type of tournament, and all the teams were very close, and all the games were very exciting, and it was just a thrilling experience for us all. We were very proud to represent our province. We were very proud to be from Yorkton, and I'm sure we are all very proud to have been nominated and elected to the Yorkton Sport Hall of Fame. We thank you very much for this honor.
Your Worship, members of the selection committee, and the inductees. I didn't expect to just give a reply, because when I spoke to Peachy Hall, he says, well, you can speak whatever you want. So I decided I would do a little reminiscing and go back years and years ago. Back in, first of all, I must say I attended last night's banquet, and we had 978 patrons at the Rough Rider dinner. Tonight we've got this dinner, and I've got to head back to Regina to take my kids home because it's got to work. And tomorrow, the ball game. For the younger generation, I would like to briefly cover some of the buildings in which the sporting events took place. Front Street Arena was located on the corner of Front Street and Tupper Avenue, to which was attached a 4-sheet curling rink. Our curlers are very fortunate today as they go into the rink, flip a coin, and can start their game with no problems at all. In the 30s, people came by train from Foam Lake, Sheeho, Saltcoats, Langenburg, Melville, Kenora, and many other centers to attend the Yorkton Annual Bonspiel. But the curlers had to each lug a wooden box holding 2 curling stones weighing at least 100 pounds. When you walked into the rink, there were those wooden boxes strung out across the curling rink. The hockey rink was right on the corner with natural ice, and when we had a spring thaw, the ice became so soft that it had to be scraped before the game and even between periods. At the far end southwest part of the arena was a big double door through which the scraped snow was removed. In the spring of 1941, when Yorkton Terriers played Regina Rangers in the finals, the ice thawed and they brought in one of those propeller-driven snowmobiles, started up in the southwest corner of the rink between periods to try to suck up the warm air and cool the ice. The noise of the propeller-driven, the noise, I should say, of the propeller-driven machine was almost unbearable. You couldn't hear yourself think in the building. And a few veterans like Vic Fernback, Jack Park, I'm sure could attest to that. Regina went on to win the Allan Cup, but Yorkton seniors outscored them. And that was really good hockey in those days. In one of the games played against Saskatchewan Quakers, Harold Lako, a future Boston Bruin, was ejected from the game by the official. The Quaker dressing room was in the northeast corner of the rink, and the dressing room was heated with a pot-bellied, coal-burning stove. Lako was so incensed at being thrown out of the game that when the action on the ice was at the far end of the ice, Lako came out of the dressing room and heaved a bucket of coal on the ice. It took the rink rats 10 minutes to clean the ice surface. course, I won't delve into my playing days because it's already been covered. And then I have to go back up to 1954. Four of us were at the Wings Lunch, formerly the Wings Lunch, just off Broadway on 3rd Avenue, at about 2:30 in the afternoon. And over a cup of coffee, the late Stanley Wodiak, the late Elmer Lang, Dr. Steve Yalaninsky, and myself were having a cup of coffee. And the night before, Detroit Red Wings lost the 6th game of the Stanley Cup Final in Montreal. So with over a cup of coffee, we said, let's go to the 7th game. By 5:30, we were on our way. We wired Metro on the train, saved 4 tickets at the box office. And in 2 days, we were in Detroit and saw the Stanley Cup Final. And it was one of those games which ended in a tie in regulation time. And in overtime, little Pete Leswick scored the winning goal. Of course, Metro had us as guests at the Book Cadillac Hotel in Detroit following the game to participate in the Stanley Cup victory party. During the course of the evening, Scarface Ted Lindsay sat on the base of the Stanley Cup on the table, and he was dishing out champagne to everybody. And I remember Steve coming up to me and he said, "Now, Bill, watch yourself. That stuff's pretty potent." They had all colors of champagne that day. About an hour or so later, Meeker says, "Where's Stevie?" We looked around, we couldn't find him. We went around the rotunda of the hotel, and there stretched on a Chesterfield was Stevie out like a light. We had quite a time that time. Then I have to write one more little incident. Before I go any further, I want to thank Harry, my twin brother, for coming here, because of the few of the people went and congratulated him tonight. And it helped me because I haven't got a sore hand. It reminds me of about 3 years ago when we were celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary. One of the Yorkton ladies come up to my twin brother and gave him a big smack on the lips and she says, "Congratulations." He says, "Thanks for the kiss, but there's Bill way up there." Anyway, I want to relate this one incident which happened about 1952 or 53. The Senior Terrors were playing in Melville this one night, and as usual, we drove to Melville in a number of cars for that game. As we were getting ready to dress for the game, I found that our trainer forgot to load my equipment, and all I brought along was my skates. So I was forced out to sit out the game. During the first period, my twin was cross-checked and hit his head to the ice and was carried off on the stretcher. After the period, we took up Harry's equipment and so I dressed. When we skated out the ice, the fans started chanting, "Prystai is a faker. Prystai is a faker." I don't think they knew that Harry was seeing stars in the dressing room. But when I came into the dressing room after the period, Harry was feeling a little better and he asked me, "Who's playing?" That's the end of my stories. Now that I'm retired, I volunteer working bingos, curl with the food brokers in the winter, and golf all summer, mostly with my twin. But even then, I can't escape some good-natured harassment when I get home. I'm golfing lousy, and a couple of weeks ago when I came home from golfing with my twin, my son Doug said, my son's sitting up there, he says, "Dad, how did you do?" He says, "Terrible." I says, I got a 47 in the front and 52 in the back. And he says, oh, you got a Gretzky, a 99. So ends it all. On behalf of Pat, Donna, Ella, Alice, and the late Rita, Mitchell, Keith, Don, Allan, and myself, thanks to the selection committee who recommended us to be inducted into the Yorkton Sports Hall of Fame. It's a great honor and privilege to be enshrined with the previous inductees. Thank you very much.
Would, however, like to tell all of you that we will do our level best next year and every year to elect, the very worthy athletes, the very worthy teams, but particularly the very worthy builders in the city of Yorkton. We'll really do our best next year and always. I had to say that. Thanks a lot to SAS Sport and SAS Lotteries. Thanks a lot to the Saskatchewan Sports Hall of Fame, of which we are a satellite of, and they look after us very, very well. Thanks a lot to the city of Yorkton, who've always shown that they'll cooperate and participate with what they feel is a worthwhile venture. I'll say a little bit just at the end about that. Thanks a lot to all the donators. You'll see the plaques at the back. So many people donated to us, and we're so pleased about that we can make you a lovely Sports Hall of Fame in Yorkton. Thanks a lot to my board who worked with me all year. That's something in itself. Thanks a lot to Ken Sherman and the Yorkton Regional High School for providing the video equipment for us. And thanks a lot for all of you for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. I did come up here for one of my main purposes was to thank Vanjie Loeb and the Decorating Committee. With that, we are going to be located in the land titles building. We need more space than we have now at the lobby, and we invite all of you to come out and visit our Sports Hall of Fame in the next year. I'm sure you'll be very proud of it, and thank you again. Goodbye.